Hey everybody, I'm here with Ron Placone and Steph Zamorano. Hi, Steph.
Hello, Jimmy.
Ron, you can hear him, you can't see him.
Howdy, howdy.
So you know that they pretend MSNBC is a progressive news network, and then Bernie Sanders came along, and we got to see just how unprogressive they really were. That they're in the tank for the establishment, whether it be Hillary Clinton or they're in the bed with the establishment, with Wall Street, Silicon. They're just like the establishment Democrats, and that's why the establishment Democrats are wiped out from coast to coast. Okay? They're wiped out from state houses, Congress, the Senate, the White House. They're wiped out, right? And it's because there's no point to them, because they're not an opposition party. They're pro-war. They're pro-big oil. They're pro-Wall Street. They're pro- TPP, they're pro everything wrong. There's no point. So we need a party that represents people, that's for a living wage, that's pro-environment, that's anti-war, pro-peace, that's for living wage, for free college, for single-payer health care. That's what the Democrats should be fighting for, but they're not. They give lip service to it, and then they immediately go and implement right-wing policies. If you watch this show, you know about it. And so they've been doing this new thing. The Democrats, and the establishment media, instead of like trying to figure out how the hell did Donald Trump win? How the hell have the Democrats wiped out at every level of government? Maybe we should do an autopsy, take a hard look for a couple of months. Every night we bring people on and we talk about this. What's wrong? What's wrong with our country? They're not doing that. What are they doing? They're talking about Russia nonstop. And they're trying to start a World War III to cover up their own malfeasance and incompetence. We've showed you this. Down in Brazil, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're trying to literally start a fucking war so people stop talking about what huge incompetence they are, and they're trying to save their career. That's not hyperbole. So, we've been talking about, I can't watch MSNBC anymore. It disgusts me so much. So it turns out there are some people over at The Intercept. They felt the same way about Rachel Maddow, and they put this together about how much she talks about Russia. Let's watch.
And here's the question. Is the new president going to take those troops out? In Russia, Russia, of whether or not Russia had help, whether they had Confederates inside the Trump campaign when they launched this attack. But every day I lead my show, and I think I'm going to be talking about something else. But every day, over the course of the news cycle, a new piece of it falls in place. We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants. If the presidency is effectively a Russian op, right? If the American presidency right now is the product of collusion between the Russian intelligence services and an American campaign, I mean, that is so profoundly big. This is not part of American politics. This is not, partisan warfare between Republicans and Democrats. This is international warfare.
Okay, it goes on and on. I have to stop it.
Yes.
I had to stop it right there because... First of all, you remember that movie Good Night and Good Luck? So it was about Edward R. Murrow, and it was about how he stood up against the Red Scare, right? The McCarthyism, the smearing.
Yep.
So that was a great movie, and it showed how something like that, a red fever, can take over a whole country. And it was a while before people stood up to them. And they red scared people, and teachers and unions and actors and writers were blacklisted. So if Rachel Maddow, if you saw her obsession with Russia like that, so when she goes to see a movie like Good Night and Good Luck, I think she gets confused on who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. She's like sitting there going, no, you're supposed to go after the Russians. No, you should have a committee. You should smear people with innuendo.
Why are they confronting that poor patriot? He's doing this is the end? When does he win?
Yeah. So here's a little bit more of her.
Against our country.
Okay, so that was the end of it. Thank God. If Rachel got $1 every time she said Russia, she'd be pretty close to her $30,000 a day salary. She'd be pretty close. She wouldn't even need that. So The Intercept did this article. It's great because I've been saying that it's not just that they're bad. They're doing bad journalism. It's that they're actively becoming a menace to our country. Rachel Maddow is a menace to our country, and the Intercept caught on to it too. She's fanning the flames for fucking war. That's what that was, what we just saw. It's not, by the way, it's not an act of international warfare. No one thinks so, except people like her, a Rhodes Scholar who can't spew enough propaganda in defense of the establishment Democrats and the corporatists that own her. Well, the Intercept caught on to it. So here they go. Says the Intercept conducted a quantitative study of all 28 Rachel Maddow episodes in the 6-week period between February 20th and March 31st. Russia-focused segments accounted for 53% of these broadcasts. That's amazing with all the stuff that's going on. We got how many wars we're in right now? Flint, Michigan. People still don't have health care. They tried to take health care away. These dropped the biggest. Anyway, 53% of her broadcasts are about Russia. That figure is conservative, by the way, excluding segments where Russia was discussed, but wasn't the overarching topic. While proof of collusion with Moscow could well emerge and could topple Trump's presidency, the, quote, above all else focus on Russia lacks concrete supporting evidence. We've talked about that. Either of Russia hacking and cyber disinformation impacting the vote's outcome or of the Trump's campaign's complicity with it. So what they're saying is, yeah, if there was proof of this collusion or something, it might bring Trump down. But over and over and over and over again, here we are now, freaking April. We're now 6 months after the goddamn election, right? 6 months. And there's still no proof? Well, how long is this going to go on? In fact, journalist Matt Taibbi calls this an exercise of conspiratorial mass hysteria.
That's absolutely appropriate at this point. I mean, it's just...
And these people have the balls to point their finger at anybody else on the internet as being conspiratorial wackadoos? Matt Taibbi's pointing the finger at you, Rachel Maddow. He's saying this is an exercise of conspiratorial mass hysteria. This muddies the waters for a sober, credible investigation of Russia's actions. But that is the least of its consequences. Democrats have avoided constructive introspection on their seismic election loss by blaming the Kremlin. Yes, it's obvious that's what they're doing. They'd rather talk about anything. Jordan Cheriton, who got in Donna Brazil's face, he revealed that that's what they're doing. They don't want to talk about what's in the emails. They want to talk about everything else. Anti-Russia sentiment threatens to turn into rank xenophobia and escalate tensions with a nuclear-armed power. That's what Rachel Maddow, you just saw her do. And most critically for a vital news source like Maddow's show, every moment devoted to scrutinizing Trump's alleged Russian ties deflects attention from his administration's actual priorities. In 16 of 28 episodes analyzed, think about that, more than 50% of the episodes analyzed, Russia compromised either all or a substantial part of the A block, the show's headlining and far lengthiest segment, which often amounts to nearly half the frickin' show, excluding commercials. You know how Rachel's show works. She starts out and she says something, then she says it over and over again for about 25 minutes. Maddow's foremost concern has been alleged Trump-Moscow collusion, which she has repeatedly suggested has continued beyond the election. Here she is on March 9th. This is a quote from Rachel Maddow. What's getting to be, I think, particularly unsettling is that simultaneously we are, number one, nailing down more direct connections between the Trump campaign and the Russian government at the time the Russian government was influencing our election. Number two, at the same time, we are also starting to see what may be signs of continuing influence in our country. not just during the campaign, but during this administration. Basically, signs of what could be a continuing operation. This is red baiting bullshit at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Isn't that kind of gross? That's like even over the top for, for Glenn Beck, that would be over the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you hear these supposed progressive outlets that they do sound like right-wing, and they're throwing around like, are you going to be a patriot and stand up to this?
Yes.
And here's something I am still trying to wrap my head around. All right, let's say you're in the camp where you can't let go of the Clinton loss. You refuse to look at the faults of the Democrats. And Rachel Maddow at one point was like, this is something really big. You know something else that's really big? The fact that we have so many situations in this country where the popular vote winner isn't the person that sits in the seat. That's something really big due to an archaic system that has roots in slavery. That's something really big. Why not talk about that? Why not the Democrats, if they had a platform in the first place, put that in the platform that, hey, it's time to get rid of the Electoral College? And how about the corporate media spend some time talking about that bogus system?
I should just end the segment right now because you nailed it, Ron, because that's exactly it. Imagine if Rachel Maddow, instead of spending 53% of her time talking about the Red Scare, talked about how bullshit the Electoral College was and how she brought on someone every night to talk about how we need to get rid of this and maybe raise awareness, but they don't want to get rid of it. Nobody cares. And it'll happen again, and then she'll talk about something else that doesn't have anything to do with anything. Imagine that, Ron. Imagine if they put the energy, the Democratic Party put the energy, at least into getting rid of the Electoral College. They're not doing anything.
Yeah. And they would sweep in 2018, because, I think if more people, like it's not talked about often enough.
Ever.
And if more people realize how ridiculous it is.
It's never, you're right. And it's a holdover from white slave owners wanting to keep the power in the hands of white guys. Somebody has to keep telling Rachel Maddow that James Bond was not a documentary series. So they go on. They say Maddow has acknowledged that allegations of Trump-Russia collusion are unverified. She's acknowledged that. But she has ignored claims that cast them in a more skeptical light. For instance, James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, told NBC News on March 5th that the U.S. intelligence has, quote, no evidence of collusion between Trump and Russia. We showed you that video on this show. On March 15th, former CIA director and Hillary Clinton surrogate Michael Morrell said, there is smoke, but there is no fire at all. He said that about Trump and Russia. Now, look, the next line is important because it's written in red. That's how you know it's important.
Thank you.
It says, those statements have gone unmentioned on Rachel Maddow's show. Those statements have gone unmentioned. Isn't that weird? Why would you do that? What the hell's wrong with her? I mean, really, what's wrong with her? Like, she's losing her mind. Like, it's not even close. Like, the Intercept did this article that you can't believe how long this article was about. And they had millions of examples. Well, we'll go through some of them. On March 7th, WikiLeaks published documents exposing cyber tools used by the CIA to penetrate cell phones and other devices. We covered that on the show, right? So WikiLeaks revealed, hey, if you want to know what, they're listening to you through your TV. And they can hack your thing, and they let us all, and they let us know. 2 days later, Rachel Maddow blamed Putin for that, reminding viewers that WikiLeaks had released the Podesta emails. Maddow asked, and this is Maddow talking here, she says, consider what the other U.S. agency is besides the State Department that Putin most hates.
What?
I'll read that to you again. She says, consider what the other U.S. agency is besides the State Department that Putin most hates. So what other part of the U.S. government besides the State Department does Putin also hate? That's what she's saying. That Putin most feels competitive with, that Putin most wants to beat. It's the CIA, right? Spy versus spy. Putin is ex-KGB. He's an ex-FSB officer. Smart observers say this is the largest dump of classified CIA material maybe ever. And it really could be a devastating blow to the CIA cyber war and flat-out spying capabilities. And that dump was released by WikiLeaks. Maddow omitted the widely circulated reports that U.S. intelligence officials believed that the CIA's own fucking contractors were behind the cyber tool leak. Not Putin, but somebody from inside the CIA leaked that.
Oh, and another story that we covered on this show, unless Maddow has proof that Putin appointed the new head of the FCC, it's not Putin's fault some of the cybersecurity issues we're going to have in this country coming up. That's not on him. That's on Trump and the new FCC.
Here's another issue they mention. A popular internet theory posits that RT, formerly Russia Today, the Russia TV station, the Kremlin-funded television network, had advanced knowledge. So there's a theory that RT, that TV network, the Russia TV network, had advanced knowledge of WikiLeaks' release of the hacked Podesta emails.
Oh, go on.
The claim is based on RT's Twitter account reporting the release 19 minutes before WikiLeaks' Twitter account did. Here's what Rachel Maddow said about this. So let's remember what this is, right? So the whole accusation of how Russia influenced our election, when people say, oh, Russia hacked our election, it makes people think that they somehow got into our voting machines and flipped votes. But what they're referring to is that someone hacked into John Podesta's email account. They got all his emails. He was the head of Hillary Clinton's campaign. He was running her campaign. And then they released those, WikiLeaks released those emails. So that's how Russia hacked into our election. That's the accusation. They've never been able to prove that it was Russia. And isn't that weird? They have every email, every text, every phone call that anybody in the United States and outside have ever given or used or sent. Yet they can't provide us with evidence. 6 months later, after the election. So let's remember that's what this is all about. So when they say Russia hacked into our election, they mean they got John Podesta's emails and revealed. So that's if anybody else did it, it would be called journalism. If anyone else did it, that's called journalism. So here's what Rachel Maddow said, that WikiLeaks tweeted out about the John Podesta emails before, but that RT tweeted out before WikiLeaks did.
Yeah, RT's Twitter.
That RT's Twitter account reported before WikiLeaks did. Oh, they must be in collusion. So here's what Rachel Maddow said about it. Russian state television was magically able to tweet about the next release of John Podesta emails, the sixth release of John Podesta emails, even before WikiLeaks released them. Russia Today, how did you know it was coming? That's what Rachel Maddow said. How did you know? Again, all this innuendo, exactly like the shit they did with McCarthyism. It's all innuendo. But, this is The Intercept says, but RT answered that question months earlier before Rachel ever asked it. And what was their answer to that query? That the Podesta emails appeared on the WikiLeaks website before WikiLeaks got around to tweeting about it. So lots of reporters were going to the WikiLeaks website to check out their stuff. And they had released that stuff on their website, and somebody at RT saw it. So it was already available on the WikiLeaks website. It wasn't like they hadn't tweeted about it yet. Rachel Maddow responded, oh.
Man, that's almost as big of a scoop as that tax return she got.
That's right up there.
Man.
That's right up there with that tax return that made Trump look like a Boy Scout. Is the new president going to take those troops out? Putin may blackmail Trump into withdrawing U.S. forces from Europe. That's another thing Rachel Maddow said. On January 17th, Maddow opened her broadcast by noting the parallels between Vladimir Putin's political ascent and former British spy Christopher Steele's just disclosed dossier asserting that Russia has compromising details on Donald Trump's sex life. Now, you remember this? This was the big thing about him, the peeing, the Russian hookers, all that, the peeing. Remember all that stuff? The golden shower. That's that dossier. Now, Rachel Maddow, we showed you on our show, she brought on Richard Engel, their foreign correspondent, who's super respected and actually goes to these places to report. He came out and said, Rachel, this doesn't even rise to the level of rumor. This isn't even an accusation, he said. This isn't even an accusation. This is basically a rumor that you're reporting full-throated. And what was Rachel's response to him? She dismissed it. She said, yeah, well, it doesn't have to be true to blackmail somebody. No, that's the whole point of a blackmail. It has to be true.
Otherwise, it's just like defamation.
Otherwise, it's just a smear.
It's a smear.
It's a regular smear. They could say it about anybody. So and The Intercept caught on to Rachel's bullshit, just like we've been caught on for quite a while. How Vladimir Putin stopped being just a KGB guy and got political power in the first place was by producing, this is Rachel talking, was by producing at just the right time and in just the right way, just the right sex tape to use for political purposes. That's what Rachel Maddow said. Maddow then discussed the increase of U.S. troops near Russia's border during President Obama's last days in office. So if you don't know, NATO and the United States are ramping up. We're being very provocative. We're ramping up our troops all around Russia. We've talked about this on the show. It's highly irresponsible. It's threatening to Russia, and it's putting us on the brink of World War III. The Kremlin is furious about it, about our ramp up bringing troops around Russia's border. The Kremlin is furious about it, Maddow said. Russia hates it, but our allies, they say they want it. And so with Trump about to enter the White House, Maddow had this to say. Here's the question. Is the new president going to take those troops out? After all, the speculation, after all the worry, we are actually about to find out if Russia maybe has something on the new president. So what she's saying, well, let me finish her quote. We are about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants once he's commander-in-chief of the U.S. military starting noon on Friday. What is he going to do with those deployments? Watch this space, seriously. So she's saying that if Trump tries to de-escalate tensions with Russia, he's a puppet. That's what a fucking news person's saying. And it's so egregious that The Intercept noticed it and did a whole goddamn article on it. And it's so egregious that I've been talking about it for a long time. These people don't give a shit. Rachel Maddow doesn't care if she starts World War III, apparently.
It's good for ratings.
Sorry?
It's good for ratings.
It's good for ratings. Her ratings are through the roof, by the way. Rachel Maddow's ratings are through the roof. You think she's going to stop red baiting now? Hey, this isn't hyperbole. This is the most irresponsible, unbelievably gut-wrenching garbage journalism I've ever fucking seen. I can't imagine anything worse than this. I can't. Can you, Ron?
No, and I think something else that's interesting to point out, Noam Chomsky pointed this out on Democracy Now! There's a very self-defeatist element to this when these people are saying, we're the resistance, and then it's like, Russia, 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 we're the resistance because Russia did this. You're actually parroting something that many see as one of the few positives in Trump. The fact that they don't want World War III and the fact that, okay, well, you know, we're getting along a little bit better with this group. Sure, Putin's not a good guy, but that's better than a war. A lot of people see that as like one of the few positives.
That's a good thing about Trump, was that he was talking about de-escalating. And this is Rachel Maddow saying if he de-escalates tension with Russia, he's a puppet. That's fucking McCarthyism on steroids. And she's considered smart, and she's considered a lefty, and she's given $30,000 a day to start a war for the military-industrial complex and to give cover to the establishment Democrats.
when she's
Rachel Maddow is a goddamn menace to this country right now. And I'm not kidding. Do you think I'm kidding? Are you?
No, I was just going to say the sad thing is in the past, she's done some brilliant work, which we've mentioned. I mean, this has been a huge fall from grace and something that I would have never expected.
Never.
I would have expected her to be one of the good guys till the end. And
You would expect. But guess what? A real progressive came along and revealed all those $30,000 a day millionaires at MSNBC to be what they are. They are the tools of the plutocrats manufacturing consent. And it got revealed. That's why I have a goddamn show. Because of how horribly they fucking handled Bernie Sanders and revealed themselves. That's why the Young Turks got 4.4 million viewers on Election Day. Because people saw how shitty they covered Bernie Sanders. Oh, by the way, as of this writing, Trump has not withdrawn troops. So I guess he's not a Kremlin puppet then, Rachel? Is that okay? He's ramping up. Is that good? He's bombing. Is that good? So now he's not a puppet? So to prove to you that he's not a puppet, he has to bomb them and keep ramping up World War III tensions? There's more to this article.